So what this means is you can get to the end of a piece of music, get say 15% of the notes wrong, not really have an idea of what's going on in some of the sections, and Simply Piano will go, "Ta-da! Well done, you smashed it. You can play that piece now." And you're like, can I though? Are we listening to the same keyboard? Because I heard what I just played and I am not rolling that out at the local talent show. How's it going, everyone? Cameron here with another app review, this time looking at the good, the bad and the ugly bits of Simply Piano. Starting off with the good. Okay, the first good thing about Simply Piano is that it's just a really well-structured, well-thought-out, professional app. You can tell that a lot of work's gone into it. It's very easy to navigate around. There's some really nice touches when you do your first module. You get to select from a number of different styles of songs which song you work towards. And yeah, it's just there's a lot of polish there. The next good thing about Simply Piano is that it's just really good at teaching you the piano. And that might sound like an obvious statement, but Simply Piano is quite different from other apps in terms of how it teaches you each piece. So Simply Piano does a great job of chunking up the piece. It teaches you at it, say 2 bars at a time, and then it gives you a couple of bars rest so you can get your fingering right. It also plays the melody for the next section that you're going to learn during that rest so you can hear it before you play it as well. It'll split up the left and right hands, teach you each piece, and then bring them together. And it quite often repeats, it gets you to repeat 3 or 4 times more difficult pieces. And this is all automated, so you don't even need to take your hands off the keyboard. It just does this automatically, and that's quite a point of difference to other piano tutoring apps. And that brings me to the next good thing about Simply Piano, and that repracticing is automated. So what I mean by that is if you're playing along through a piece and you make too many mistakes, Simply Piano recognizes that you've made too many mistakes, and then it takes you back a few bars to get you to play through that bit again until you get it right. It does this 3 times, and if you still get it wrong or make too many mistakes after the 3rd time through, it enters into this dedicated practice mode. This is what the practice mode looks like. So you have the option to play through it on the wait feature, which basically means that the score will not scroll on until you actually hit the right notes, or you can play through at a reduced speed, say 60% or 80%. So overall, I found this a really good feature. It means that you can practice bits that you're struggling with without even having to reach over and set up any loops. It just does that all automatically, which is quite nice. The automation of repracticing does come with some downsides, and I'll touch on that later on in the review. The next good thing about Simply Piano is that when it comes to teaching you theory or technique, it gives you just what you need to know. So it doesn't overburden you with information. It doesn't give you a 10-minute lecture on hand posture. It just says, hey, here's some things to think about. That takes about 20 or 30 seconds, and then you're on into the piece. And this pops up every now and again. So it gives you just enough for where you are right now. And that includes theory and notation and reading music and all that. And it's just a nice introduction without being bombarded with information. The next good thing about Simply Piano is that for some pieces, it'll give you a little bit of context for the piece before you learn it. And it'll also break down the piece and tell you basically how it's structured and what to expect. And this is just a really nice touch. It doesn't, again, overly labor this. It just does it in a nice short video, which gives you some context for some of the classical pieces. The next good thing about Simply Piano is that they have a very active development team. I know this because I've been playing the app for a couple of months and I'm constantly getting updates. And I can also tell because some of the things or some of the bugs that I noticed when I first started using the app seem to have gone away as I was going through. So it's good to know that they have an active development team. The next good thing about Simply Piano is they do note when you need to shift hand position actually on the score. This is great because it means that you can see at a glance when you need to move your hand over to the F position or whatever it is. There are a couple of downsides of this, is that sometimes you do end up just reading the fingering numbering instead of the notes, but overall I think it's a really helpful feature. The next good thing about Simply Piano is they have the sheet music view where you can basically load up a piece like it was a piece of sheet music, and you still get feedback on which notes you're getting right because it colors them in. And this is just a nice introduction to sheet music, which brings me to the next good thing about Simply Piano, and that Simply Piano gets you reading notation, musical notation from the get-go. This is not overly daunting. It does a great job of keeping you in the Goldilocks zone, so not too difficult, not too hard, and it does it in quite a fun way, and it's just great right from the get-go to get used to reading notation. The next good thing about Simply Piano is that it introduces chords right from the beginning. Not all piano learning apps do this, but I think it's really good that you're playing chords almost from the get-go, because a lot of people just want to be able to play Christmas carols on the piano or play the chords of their favourite pop songs that they find through other online or other apps. And this just enables you to get straight in and do that. The way that it works is you have this chord stream down the bottom, and then you have like a lead stream up the top. And what I found myself doing is that I would play on the chord one for a while and get a bit of the way through that. And then when I got tired of playing chords, I'd switch back to the lead and play the lead stuff for a while until I got tired of doing that, and then I could switch back to the chords. And you can bounce between the two tracks quite nicely. And at the end of some sections, they then bring the two together, lead and chords at the same time. And it's just a really nice approach to learning both. And now for the bad. Okay, starting off with the UI and interface, I did still notice a few glitches, a couple of places where I ticked to or pressed a button to repractice a piece, but it just took me on to the next section. I will say though that this was very few and far between, like 99% of the time it worked flawlessly. It's just a couple of places every now and again. The next bad thing about Simply Piano is there's no in-the-moment feedback on timing. You do get the screen at the end of a piece, which will tell you what percentage of notes you got in time, but there's no feedback on where you were out of time actually on the score, so that you just have to try and remember or work out. That differs to something like Musician, where they actually give you in the moment real-time feedback on if you were early or too late on a particular note. The next bad thing is that there's no customizable looping feature in Simply Piano. Simply Piano has this automated process that it goes through when you hit tricky pieces or you make mistakes. I actually found those to be quite good, so I didn't miss the looping feature, but there probably will be a cohort of users that want to set up their own customizable loops and play it through at their own speed which they choose. The next bad thing is only a 1 week trial for Simply Piano, and I just feel like that's a bit stingy. For busy people that might only get a chance to play 2 or 3 times a week trial is not long. Give us 2, come on. However, as a small plus, I did notice that when my trial ended, that the first beginner module remained unlocked, which is good if you're a complete beginner, but if you're a more experienced pianist trying out some of the later modules, that's actually not really going to help you out. So give us a longer trial, Simply Piano. And that brings us to the ugly, and it is quite ugly really. So Simply Piano is quite a forgiving app, and what I mean by that is that it'll let the user make quite a few mistakes before it'll go, oh, hey, hang on a minute, we need to go back and practice that bit again, or before it enters into the practice mode. And that percentage of mistakes that it'll let you get away with is quite high. Like it's somewhere in the region of, at the bottom end, I'd say it's at least 10% and could be as high as 20%. And what this means is like, you'll get to the end of a piece, make quite a few mistakes, bumble your way through some of the bars, and Simply Piano will go, ta-da! Well done, you smashed it. You can play that piece now. And you're like, can I though? Are we listening to the same keyboard? Because I heard what I just played, and I am not rolling that out at the local talent show. So yeah, Simply Piano is a very forgiving app on the mistakes. And you know, there's pros and cons, like you do feel like you're always getting through the pieces and moving on to new bits, which is great. But 15% of the errors, roughly, it's quite high. And the place where this is a real problem is if you really wanted to perfect a piece, like you wanted to perform it, or you just, for your own enjoyment, really wanted to nail a piece and play it 100% correctly, then it's really difficult for you to be able to do that in Simply Piano. And the reason for that is because you can just make so many mistakes and it doesn't pull you up on them. And people will say, oh yeah, sure, but you can still scroll back and enter into the practice mode. Well, yeah, you can do that, but then you have to stop what you're doing, scroll back, find the section, enter into the mode, select what speed you want. That whole sense of automation of repracticing, which is one of the strengths of Simply Piano, is completely lost. What Simply Piano needs to do to solve this problem is allow the user to set what percentage of mistakes are acceptable for each piece that they're learning. And it would be great if you could do that at a by piece level, or maybe even if you could just have an option in the global settings. Because at the end of the day, it should be the users that decide how many mistakes are acceptable, not some bloke sitting in the head office of Simply Piano. So that brings us to the end of the good, the bad, and the ugly bits of Simply Piano. I hope you found this review useful. If you have, please consider subscribing to my channel. It just helps other people like yourself find my content. Okay, that's it for me. See you later.